This is the first of Horn Legacies, a series of mini interviews with horn greats, and today I have the privilege of talking with the renowned Marty Hackleman. Marty, you've held positions with almost every capacity of horn playing that a hornist can do. You've played for NSO in Vancouver, you've toured with Empire Brass and the Canadian Brass at the height of their performing abilities, and you've had a lengthy solo and recording career. How on earth did your chops do all of those things in all of those capacities? And what can we do if we want our chops to be as versatile as yours?
The thing is, we're just coming out with a new thing because people have asked me this all these years. The main point is that for me, I started when I was 16 and got my first job at 19, so I didn't have much training. But everyone said, "Oh, you're so talented," and I kind of felt that I did because I loved it. But I knew that this is a slippery slope, so I have to be because I wasn't taught. I had to be my best teacher and pupil. So I was very thorough about everything because I was worried. And sure enough, after a couple of years, things just fell apart. And I didn't have a teacher to go back to, and I had to fix it or I didn't eat. So it was a real motivation thing. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do it myself. I can figure this out. It's not that complex. Well, it is and it isn't, as we all know. So I set about making sure that I covered every part of my playing every day, even though I didn't think it was necessary. So I did not want to have the days, is this a good day or a bad day? I never wanted to ask that damn question. So that's the way I did it. I fixed myself, and every time I fixed myself, which happened many times, I got better. And the goal was to train myself to be a natural player, which most of my career, everybody thought looked so easy. No, I trained myself to do that. So in order to do that, I was really responsible. I played anything and everything that had a horn in it. I didn't care. Well, who was in it? I didn't care, good or bad. If there's someone's better than me, I'm going to learn from them. If I'm better than them, I'm going to make them sound good. That was it. Didn't care. So I did movies, I did television, orchestras, chamber music, solo, anything under the sun without a plan. That's the important thing. So I did it without a plan. So just do it. Just your only job is to make it slightly better than yesterday, not as good as tomorrow. And so I was open to anything and everything. So in Canada, fortunately, one of the reasons it was able to do so many things is CBC would record it all the time, live broadcasts. I still have 8 days worth of live broadcasts on tape that I still have sitting around. Anyway, so I didn't have a plan, and so anytime it came along, I was doing solo things and chamber music, and so when it came along that I had a good reputation in Canada, and I got a call from Canadian Brass, and then suddenly, like I was this orchestral player and Con 8D in those days, and in order to be efficient, the brass quintet, you can't play all that stuff, all as you know. You can't do it as an orchestral player. So I had to relearn how to be light and efficient. And so it was another step up. And so every time you did it, and then that was much, much better. But logistically, it was tough on the personal life to be on the road. And then the Empire Brass, and that the change of that was a whole new story. I think you might know that. So when you're playing in the quintets, you had to be efficient. You can't do it. So I changed equipment a lot, and I watched how to play and dynamically and all that kind of stuff really changed a lot. So the orchestra came along, and in movies and stuff, as you know, you might have done. A lot of you guys have done some recordings and stuff, especially just regular orchestral CDs, but in the opposite of TV. So I would do the original MacGyver show. That was me. And you'd go in every week and you'd sit down in this room and they put a folder on your thing and you got so many hours and you open it up. Okay, the click is here, go. You had one chat. That was it. And if you messed it up, it was bad. Orchestrally, it's just the opposite. If you're doing a Strauss tone poem and everybody wants to get the mics right, you go through it about 8 times. Okay, we're ready to record now, and your chops are fried. So you got to really be efficient and careful. So for me to do everything that I did, every time I did something, I was thinking about it carefully, and it was based on my routine. I had to be covered. I had to be able to play a Mozart symphony, Concertstück, movie soundtrack, brass quintet. I had to have it all ready to go. So I tested everything. So that's just a long answer of how I did it because I wanted to do everything and nobody told me how to do it. So I thought, I guess I gotta figure this out.
So you
Does that
built a
help?
routine that touched everything and allowed you to
Yes.
have all
And
of
and
this
that's what I
support.
finally put together with Steve people have asked me, so the new thing has just come out called the Hackleman Approach and Routine. It's it's very thorough because people say, well, and they look at my routine and say, oh, I'm not going to do that. But I redid it and made it organized so it's not undoable. But I thought I had to give a reference. The worst thing we could do for a horn player is just throw another piece of paper on the table and say, here's how I warm up. No, this isn't how I warm up. I didn't say it was a warm up. I said it was a routine. Warming up is a byproduct. So I thought I've got to give the person some clarity. So I got a 20-page thing. So it's a Hackleman approach. So my biography and then the Hackleman history with the horn. So I go into how I got on the horn and why and how I had to do these things we were just describing. And then I go into the approach because based on my history of the horn being desperate and stupid, I had to come up with this and that's approach. Then before we get to the actual routine, I have 10 talking points, air, articulation, so all these things of how I approach them. And so as a person who reads through these 18 pages, then they say, okay, now I'm going to look at the actual routine and it has some reference.
Now I understand what I'm doing,
Now, yeah,
when,
and
where,
because if you
why.
just look at the routine, you're like, what the hell is that? But if you realize why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I always try to make the problem simple and the answer and the fixing simple. So that's the main thing. If you think you're right, the first thing you do is the opposite of what you think. 9 out of 10 times, it's like, I didn't see that coming. So you've got to make it. And if they're simple, if it's not simple, the question isn't simple and the answer isn't simple, it's not right. You haven't finished it. It might be right, but you're not even finished it.
Mhm. So you kind of already touched a little on my next question, which was with all these different styles and contexts of playing, if you were able to do that on the same equipment or if you found the need to switch
Yeah.
equipment based off your context. Could you talk to me about like the types
Yeah,
of
I
horns you
mean,
found success with where?
exactly. I mean, in the beginning, it was a Con 8D. That's what my teacher was raised on. That's what I was played, and it was fine. But as soon as I joined the Canadians, and I had a big old mouthpiece with a one hole, I'm a Brands man, so that's what you did. But you can't survive with that. So I quickly realized that for quintet and different kind of playing, and whether it's even back then, desk amps were rare. So especially with the Canadians, it was perfect because when I joined, we were sponsored by Yamaha, and they would do anything for you. And we always were getting new horns, and they're always gold plated. I'll give you an example of how unbelievable they were. I did 18 tours of Japan. On one of the tours early on with the Canadians, we came in the beginning before the 2 week run where you played every night. Uh, and they said, oh, come here and look at the horns. And we looked at the horns and then picked out, they gave me a new horn. And I said, it would really be cool. I think it would be fascinating if we did bells, annealed and unannealed, thin and thick, and all the different metals, which would be like 15 bells or so if you did it all up.
Hmm.
And the Japanese, And I didn't stay there to do anything. At the end of the tour, they asked me to come back to the shop before we left. They put me in a room. They had made all those bells for me to try.
2 weeks later?
Yeah, 15 different bells in the way I asked them to. I mean, it was crazy. So I was always experimenting, and a lot of times too, I quickly found out too that, and I talk about this in the routine. If you think you sound good right here, your bell, that's what I want to sound like. It's going to sound dull out there. You have to sound clearer and brighter than you think here in order to make it sound and project there. So that kind of thing you learn quickly because if you're recording and you think I sound like a god, and then you hear like Jesus, what was that?
Yeah, so did you then find yourself having different goals for your sound based off of if you were in the recording studio, like on the moving and playing concert stage or the orchestra hall?
Orchestra, yes, because you're on a big thing with the chamber music groups. Your mics are close, but you had
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that you really balance things out. And for instance, we talked about the woodwind and brass quintet. There's a huge change there, and so you can't just take the horn out. I'm a horn player. I'm here, because if you walk into a rehearsal hall for a woodwind quintet, you walk in before you open the case. You're too loud. It's too loud. So you have to make sure you treat that, and therefore, and there's equipment wise sometimes, but just the way you do it. And some quintets, like the quintets between the Canadian brass and Empire brass, Canadian was bright, high, bright, light, and clear, and it was like super light, but very, very clean. So I had to learn to change equipment in order to get that sound and balance the sounds that are around me, and really listen to how that fit color wise in recordings and concerts. And Empire was much more aggressive, so we changed the way we sat. and which was, I think, the best way for a brass quintet to sit. And I could,
And what way is that?
oh, okay, I'll tell you. I'm glad you asked. We sat, if I'm looking at you and you're the audience, okay, on this side over here, when the audience is in front of me, that's Sam. That tuba bell was pointed out. Then Scott and the two trumpets, those three instruments were pointed straight out. Then the horn was on the end, so I could feather my bell in and out, open to the audience or back this way. So, and then you can always go down like this, and we always stood.
Hmm.
So
So every
when
instrument's clear sound is getting
yeah,
turned to
what
the
you could
audience.
hide it. I mean, you could get the tuba to be less
Hmm.
and then if the trombone and tuba and or the trumpets wanted, they could put their bells gently into the stand. You could get all sorts of colors. But when you wanted to really like, scorch earth, that sound was unbelievable because you could just everybody's bells up and it's out there. Now the other thing is very important that I learned very, very fast, especially from the Canadians and the Empire, which you don't notice. If you listen to recording, you can hit on it, but you don't normally hear it. And even in the recordings or even in concerts, you can hear it, but because it's the only thing on stage, you're not totally aware of it. All the dynamics are cut. In other words, a mezzo forte is actually an orchestral mezzo piano. Everything is toned down a notch, but everybody does it equally. Therefore, you have more color and more stamina by the end of the night. But you can't come in here and sit there like a big, fat first one playing, oh, war, 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 war. You won't. Mm-mm. Because what happens with most brass quintets, as we know, for instance, is that you get in a room and they're sitting in a little horseshoe, firing squad circle, blowing into each other, and they don't feel like they can hear each other or themselves. So everybody just keeps playing like this until everybody's playing polka forte all the time. And
Hmm.
you last about 45 minutes and you're done, and the balance is terrible. So you've got to really consciously play down and really listen very carefully, but take about a third of the tone out, or a third of the dynamic out. So you learn these things as you do it in order to survive and musically. And if you listen to that, you can hear in those two quintets them doing it. But when you listen to most West quintets, they did not do that. But if everybody says, okay, we're going to cut all our dynamics down by a third, and then you can say that's your trumpets coming to lead up here, and it's very easy for them to lead up, or the horn, then with changing the bell things, especially like with the horn and the wind quintet, you have to sit a different way. So there's a lot of things that you just learn in order to survive. And then on the technical level, doing the routine, say, okay, I'm going to be playing a little lighter today, so therefore I'm going to make my lower body firmer and a faster air. So I'm not wasting air. It's air quality. So you just learn these things in order to survive. And so, and you, I don't know, I just paid attention. So there was never an absolute. Nobody said this is the only way to do it. I thought, no. And even when I got to it, it's like, okay, let's do it a little different. How could I, do it differently next time?
It's so interesting to hear you talk about that, especially like playing in the brass quintet on stage, because so much of that is actually almost identical to how we talked about playing in blast. That in
Yep.
my head, like,
Oh,
was just a marching band thing or just a blast thing, and nobody
yeah.
else would think that way. So it's
Yeah.
it's really cool to hear you talk about
Yeah.
that being your playing experience
Well, and
too.
the thing is, you don't know it even in orchestra when you're on stage. You think, oh, nobody can hear this, and a lot of times they can't because of the orchestration, but a lot of times they can. And how many times have we all sat in the orchestra like, oh, I had a little solo here. I sounded like a god. I can't wait to listen to that. And you get to it, it's like, was I even there? So yeah, and it's you, and especially as an orchestra player, you just like nobody's paying attention. So you sit back there, you pick your nose, you got dirty shoes. I mean, the thing is, if you, as you know, really, when you're sitting in a concert, if you have looking at a concert, you're staring at the people, thinking, that's this hideous dress. Why did she pick that? Or like, his hair looks hideous. Did he have a shower today? You're thinking about all this. And we musicians on stage are thinking, nobody's seeing
We're
me.
like, oh, it's not important.
No, it's not important. I mean, a good example is with the Canadians. We had matching outfits and all that, of course, but just
Hmm.
one time we got these Swiss formal shoes, all matching, and they were beautiful. They were silk with a band of another kind of silk over the arch, and they looked stunning. They were gorgeous shoes, and we got these things, and they're like, these are really cool. And for all the times for the season or so that we wore those shoes, we'd go to receptions without fail. Because when you're sitting in the audience, what's at eye level? The
Shoes.
shoes. And so everyone says, those shoes were so, they didn't talk about her playing. Those shoes were so awesome. Where did you get those? So yeah, it was funny, but we, it's very exaggerated with chamber music and solos, but still, you got to be careful about what you're trying to do, and fix it. Like, for instance, a good example, like when I first got my job, I wasn't nervous, but I was going on fumes, and so your mentality is really, really important around people. And so we're doing the Schumann piano concerto, the high G sharp entrance out of nowhere that you can't hear, and I muffed it one night. I just got, oh, and it wasn't just a chip; it was like, ouch. And so I thought, oh, so I started getting nervous, and so I got through the next concerts, you could tell I was nervous, and I could tell all the people around me were thinking like, gosh, I hope he doesn't stink tonight. Oh, God, please don't embarrass us. And you could tell that there's a bit of like, oh, I feel so sorry. It sucks to be you, that kind of thing. And I thought, this is hard. I can't do the rest of my life like this. So I thought, okay, I know I can do this. I just have to have confidence. I don't know where the confidence to come from, but I'm going to fake it. So I thought, I'm going to come in there acting cool as a cucumber. Like, got this. Hey, man, how's it going? Blah, 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 really chill. And I could see the looks on their faces like, what happened to him? Okay, cool. So and you could see they're relaxed, their shoulders relaxed, they're
Mm-hmm.
breathing. They weren't afraid to look at me, you know. And so it was fine. And then once they were, I gave me some confidence that they had confidence. And so it was a symbiotic thing. And so I could do it. You got to be able to do it, but you got to believe in yourself. Half of it is just believing, So, and that turned me around, just faking it. And it started with a fake, you know.
That's awesome advice. I want to circle back. You mentioned switching horns and experimenting
Hmm.
with different bells. While you did all of this other equipment changing, were you playing on the same mouthpiece the whole time, or were you also switching
Oh
mouthpieces?
no, no, no. I mean, originally I was, but then, I messed around and yeah, by the time I quit playing 2016, I had, well, I don't know, 300 or 400 mouthpieces, I mean, a ton
One
of
of
them.
one of those.
Yeah, and I was always messing about. The problem was, and one of my exes would say, like, I would test horns and test mouthpieces, and she would say, "What's the point of that? You can play any of it. You sound the same on any of it." So I was always just messing around. So mouthpieces, yeah, because if you're playing wind quintet or different levels that you're playing, you're playing morphs and evolves and dissolves.
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying to find something to hide this kind of hideous part of your playing or enhance the talent. And you know how it is. We all know how it is. You get this mouthpiece, and today it's like, oh my God, this is the gold. This is El Dorado right here. This is like a perfect thing. And the next
Today it
day,
solves your problems.
yeah, and the
Tomorrow you
next thing
hate
you
it.
pick it up and you think, what the hell are you doing here? You know? So you're constantly like mussing around. And finally, towards the end, I ended up on Paxman 4B because it was a general kind of medium. It's good on all things, nothing too extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that I had to like just get in the middle of things. So, but you don't learn it because I mean, I see so many people come in and we know too. And it's some of it's valid for our own level of playing at the time. We see the mouthpiece and oh, that helps me with my high register. Yes, but you still have a problem with your high register because you
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to use your air or your lip is messed up.
Yeah.
So it's fun at some of the conferences and stuff because I mean, it's not that I'm brilliant. It's just that I've experienced all these problems myself. So I understand. So they'll come in and try this and try this. And I said, okay, I'm going to tell you to do it. You need to use your lower body this way and this way. And I don't want you to look at the mouthpiece. I'm going to give you a mouthpiece and a
Mm-hmm.
mouthpiece. And now you do physically, you do what I tell you to do. Don't pay attention to the mouthpiece. And about at least half the time, they end up on their original mouthpiece sounding just fine.
And
So,
this tends to be where most advice gets distilled, which is pick something in the middle of the road that lets you
yep,
do a lot of things.
yeah, yeah.
And I
And I
know
mean,
you've recently designed a mouthpiece with
yeah,
Steve Lewis at Legacy Horn
mhm,
Experience.
yeah.
Where does that mouthpiece fit? Would you say it's middle of the line? Is it serving a specific need from a specific part of your
Yeah,
playing?
it's the middle of the line mostly. The rim is basically a kind of a 4B rim, which is very comfortable. The cup is a little different in that the back bore and the cup size and the hole size seem a little odd, but we did a bunch of experimenting, and by making this mouthpiece specifically with these three sort of different combinations, it's a shorter mouthpiece than normal, a little bit. but some of them are a little bigger. But because of the size of the backbone and stuff, it gives a really incredible upper register, which you wouldn't understand. But it's very open too and free at the same time. There's a lot of mouthpieces with good high register feels kind of tight, but like, okay, I'm getting a high B. It does sound rather puny, but I got a high B. You know what I mean? This isn't that way. So again, just a lot of experimentation over the years. I mean, just constantly mussing around with it. And then this was pretty close to what I ended up for many years towards the end. So that's what I did.
I would agree with that. I'm not sure if you know this, but I actually switched to your Legacy Cup this summer
Oh,
at
you did?
ISS. Yes, I love it.
Oh, well, tell me what
It's
you thought.
so
What?
free blowing and easy to control. Obviously, like I play all sorts of parts of the
Yeah.
horn, and it makes all of my horn jobs easy.
Oh, that's wonderful. I didn't know that. That's so
Yeah,
great. Well, that's
I'm
exactly what
playing on
I,
the regular, the deeper one. I love it.
yeah. And you think like, well, this is deep, oh, deep, but somehow it works. And
Hmm.
like you say, it makes it free blowing, you know. Good. I'm so happy for that. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I don't want to waste too much of our time, so we
Yeah.
have one question left for you,
Okay.
and I'm really eager to hear what you have to say, which
Uh-oh.
is, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice I've ever received. Well, honestly, I didn't receive advice. I saw advice.
Oh,
Uh, the best example would be when I studied with Barry Tuckwell a few times. He was unbelievable. He was completely self-taught too. I'm not completely, but he was. But he was the sweetest guy in the world. But when he played next to me, he was like, play this. He was effortless. I mean, effortless. You couldn't think, is he making a sound? And I started looking at all these the best players didn't look like they were working. You didn't see them. You weren't aware of them taking a breath, etc. So I thought, so this is the advice I saw was given to me. It wasn't described, but it was like put right in front of my face here. Like, look, if you're sweating and working too hard and
yeah,
stressed out,
something's not.
you don't work harder, you work less. So I would try to start, how easy can I make this? How can I, again, start with faking. Start with like, I'm not really going to take it. In order to, for instance, the best way to, this is typical from what I saw with Barry. You never saw him breathe. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to breathe. I'm not going to take a big breath. I'm just going to just start playing. And it was very, very different when you just start playing without too much of a breath or no breath at all, because your lower body is creating all the air energy there instead of compounding it in the chest. And that's what Barry was naturally doing. He breathed all the time, but you never saw him breathe. So things like that. So the advice was observing. The advice was observing and realize you don't know shit, really. So you kind of keep learning. You don't go, this is the way. You just don't. So I would say the advice is to be observant
Hey,
and
well,
flexible.
that itself is amazing advice.
Well, good.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Marty. I've really enjoyed this, and I think a lot of other people will hopefully gain some great value from this conversation.
Good. I hope
If
so.
people would like to find you and your other exploits, horn musings, publications, where can they?
Yeah. Legacy mainly. Contact me there or just through Facebook. And if anybody has any questions technically or musically or like just want to, I mean, yeah, I'm trying to pass it on with my repertoire, my music, my ideas. Not that it's the only thing to do and it's the most valuable thing, but I think it might save some people some stress and time. Say like, well, he figured it out. And the thing is, again, most of the stuff I try to approach with whether it's talking with you or anybody else is like, we have the common thing here. So we have common problems. And I can save you some time if you take a listen to what I did, because I'm not coming up with anything extraordinary. I'm not doing anything exaggerated. How simple can you make the problem? How simple can you make the answer? And how easy can you make it look? Those are pretty okay. And if you don't understand it, fake it. Then you'll get there. But don't sit there waiting for it to enter. You have to open the door and fake. You know, experimentation won't walk in the door. You have to open and invite it in.